Hello everyone. Today I'll be continuing with the methods to determine absolute and relative configuration. In the previous videos we have studied two methods. Now we're going to study the method of quasi-resume. The two structurally similar chiral molecules of opposite configuration that is heteroatom sometimes form quasi-racemic compounds. That is, I told you in the heterocyclic chemistry what is meant by quasi-racemic or quasi-racemic. These quasi-racemic compounds which can be easily characterized by their mixed melting point diagram. This provides a method of configurational correlation of two species which may not be chemically transformed into each other. The method is very simple and the least time consuming, but in order to succeed requires some conditions to be fulfilled. The, the conditions are the compounds to be compared the compounds should be chemically very similar. They must not be too small and are usually polar. Both the enantiomers of at least one of the components A and B must be available so that one can check whether dextrorotatory compound A and B form a quasi-racemic compound, and plus and minus, that is combination of dextro and levo, that is plus A and minus A, form a simple mixture or the reverse. The method is not applicable if both the combinations form molecular compounds or if both form simple mixtures. A classical correlation achieved by this method is between malic acid and methyl succinic acid. They do not form quasi-racemic compounds by themselves. That is the levorotatory malic acid. This is the malic acid which is first converted into ethyl xanthate derivative, and this is the ethyl xanthate moiety. Hence this molecule with that moiety is called ethyl xanthate derivative, and the later is found to form a quasi-racemic compound. That is, this ethyl xanthate derivative is found to form a quasi-racemic compound with ethyl thionocarbonate. This is an ethyl thionocarbonate. You can compare these two structures. It's just the rearrangement of these atoms. You can see that this S is attached to this carbon, whereas O become an ethanate. That is, this molecule, that is this ethyl xanthate derivative, forms a quasi-racemic compound with this ethyl thionocarbonate of 2-thiol succinic acid. This is 2-thiol succinic acid. That means this is the derivative of the 2-thiol succinic acid. That is, this 2-thiol succinic acid can be converted to this ethyl thionocarbonate. The configuration of this thiol succinic acid is thus known. That is, we know the configuration of the thiol succinic acid. The thiol in turn forms a quasi-racemic compound with methyl succinic acid. This is methyl succinic acid, whose configuration is thus follows. That is, even the configuration of this methyl succinic acid we came to know. The thiol succinic acid can be converted into S-alkylated. This is S-alkylated thiol succinic acids, many of which forms a quasi-racemic compounds with higher alkyl succinic acids, and the correlation is continued. That is, the configurations can be further we will found. The configurations of the that is, if you transform this, that is this compound, if you convert to other compound, even the product can be The configuration of the product can be found very easily using all these standard molecules. And this diagram gives this is the melting point diagram, that is mixed melting point diagram. That is, this is the y-axis is the melting point and this is the x-axis is the concentration. Coming to the next method, use of optical rotatory dispersion curves. Under this, a first method is alpha axial haloketone rule and its applications. This rule was stated by Jarasi and Klein. This rule applies when there is an axial halogen, that is chlorine, chloride, bromide and iodide, but not fluoride, because the polarizability of fluoride is very low while those of chlorine, bromine and iodine are very high. That is, this rule applies when there is an axial halogen next to the keto group of the cyclohexanone moiety. This is the cyclohexanone moiety, and according to this rule there is an axial halogen next to the keto group. One looks at the carbonyl group which is so placed that it occupies the head of the chair or sometimes board closest to the observer. That is, you should place the carbonyl group at the head position. These are the head positions. If the halogen appears at the observer's right, the compound will show a strong positive Cotton effect is expected, and if it appears at the left, the strong negative Cotton effect is expected. That is, if you observe through this, that is 6 will be towards left and 2 will be towards right. One can also project the molecule into 4 quadrants defined by a horizontal plane. This is the horizontal plane, and passing through a C6, C1 and C2, and this is the cyclohexanone moiety. You can see this carbonyl is here and this is C6, this is C2 and halogen is attached to the C2 carbon, C3, C4, 6. This cyclohexanone, the molecule is projected into the 4 quadrants defined by a horizontal plane. Consider this plane as a horizontal plane B through C6, C1 and C2. A vertical plane, this is a vertical plane dividing the cyclohexanone across C carbonyl group and C4. That is, this plane exactly cuts at the center, dividing equally and labeling the 4 quadrants with positive, negative. That is, this quadrant gets a positive and that is a right, and towards left we will get a negative, and exactly the next 2 quadrants will be the opposite to this quadrants, meaning that a substituent in a positive sector contributes to the positive Cotton effect. That is, if a substituent lies in the positive quadrant, then it contributes to the positive Cotton effect. Whereas if the substituent is in the left quadrant or else negative quadrant, then it contributes negative Cotton effect. In this molecule, in the cyclohexanone derivative molecule, the halogen X in the projected structure is in the lower right quadrant, that is a plus sector, and hence this molecule shows a positive Cotton effect. That is, if you view through this, as I said before, the carbon 6 will be left towards us and C2 carbon 2 will be right towards us. Therefore, this halogen is at the right side and this is a positive which lies in the positive quadrant, and hence this molecule shows a positive Cotton effect. Coming to the applications, application an elegant application of the axial haloketone rule is illustrated in the determination of the absolute configuration of trans 1 decalone, that is levorotatory trans 1 decalone. This enantiomer may correspond to either structures 1A or 1B. This trans 1 decalone may be in this form or else in this form. There are two enantiomers. Since it has a chiral center, so it form a enantiomers. That is on experimental proof on bromination, it gave plus trans 2 bromo 1 decalone with bromide in the axial position, which shows a strong positive Cotton effect. That is, experimental proof showed that bromo, that is trans 2 bromo 1 decalone, showed a strong positive Cotton effect. Looking at the two structures, that is this is 1A and 1B, when R is equal to Br, that is after bromination of trans 1 decalone, it is easy to say that the first would give a positive Cotton effect. That is, this is the first one. If you view through this carbonyl group, and you have to remember that carbonyl group should be at the head position at the top. So the bromide is at the right side. If you view through this, then it shows a positive Cotton effect. And if you come to the second one, if you view through this and bromination is in the left, hence it shows a negative Cotton effect. But as I said you, on bromination, that is experimental proof said that on bromination it shows a positive Cotton effect. Hence it proved that the configuration of trans 1 decalone thus corresponds to this structure but not to this structure. If this was the case, then on experimental proof should have proved that Cotton effect is a negative, but it showed Cotton effect is a positive, hence the structure corresponds to the trans 1 decalone. Hence from this we came to know the configuration of the trans 1 decalone. Coming to the next example, that is in another instance, the application of an axial haloketone rule proves that the A ring of some substituted 2-bromo 3-keto steroids exists as a boat. Thus the kinetically controlled bromination of 2-alpha methyl 3-cholestanol gives a 2 substituted tertiary bromo compound with bromine at the axially oriented, which shows a negative Cotton effect. That is, this is the A ring, this is B, this is C, and this is D. And you can see that methyl is at the second position, whereas keto is at the third position. This is a steroid, and normally expected product, this is the expected product, that is this molecule has been converted to a chair form. This product, expected product with axial bromo, would have a strong positive effect. That is, bromine is on the right hand side. This is the right hand side of the chair is held with CO at the top. That is, as I said to you, this is not the correct structure. Since the CO carbonyl should at the top position, you should twist the molecule to the 180 degree, then the CO carbonyl will come to this position. Then if you view through carbonyl group, then the bromide will come to the right position, and which shows a positive Cotton effect. The only structure which conforms to the negative Cartan effect is this one, a diastereomer of 3 with a ring A. This is ring A, but B and C I haven't written here. So with ring A in the boat conformation, this is the boat conformation, whereas this is in the chair conformation. Bromine is now in the axial alpha but axial position. Bromination presumably takes place by a parallel attack through twist boat transition state. This is a boat form, whereas in the transition state this boat will be twisted, hence that is called a twist boat transition state because of the steric effect of the 10 methyl. This is the 10 methyl. This affects the twist boat transition state due to the steric hindrance of this methyl group, and the initially formed boat structure 4 does not flip to the chair with equatorial bromine, since this destabilized by methyl. This is methyl syn diaxial interaction, and also by an unfavorable dipole interaction between this carbonyl group and CBr bond. That is, after converting it to boat form, this doesn't flip into the chair with the equatorial bromine. This is stable in this form. Since this destabilizes the methyl syn diaxial interaction, and also by an unfavorable dipole interaction between this carbonyl group and an CBr bond. Coming to the next method, the octant rule, whereas in the previous thing we studied, there is only 4 sectors, which is called a quadrant, that is a 4-quadrant rule. Here it is an octant rule, hence it will be a 8 quadrants. The octant rule was first formulated by Moffat in 1961 for the correlation of the sign of the Cartan effect of chiral cyclohexanone derivatives with their absolute configuration. In its simplest form, the space around carbonyl group is divided into 8 sectors, which is called an octants, with the help of the 3 orthogonal planes A, B and C defined by XY, ZY and XZ respectively. I have shown in the respective diagram. You can see this is the plane A, which is vertical. This is the horizontal plane is plane B, and one more plane, there is a plane C. The vertical plane A, this is a vertical plane A which bisects the cyclohexanone chair. You can see here I have drawn this cyclohexanone. This is a carbonyl group. This is the cyclohexanone moiety chair, and the horizontal plane B contains the carbonyl moiety and the 2 attached carbons C2 and C6. That is, you can see this carbonyl group is on the plane of the B, and even C6 as C2 is on the plane B. They are also symmetry planes of associated carbonyl group of C2V symmetry. That is, this hexanone moiety is a symmetry element of C2V. They divide the space into 4 quadrants. The cyclohexanone moiety is oriented with C1 at the head and closest to the observer, as in the axial haloketone rule. That is, this is the I. This carbonyl group should be closest to the observer. That is, this they divided the space into 4 quadrants. As I said, these are the, see, you can see this is upper left, towards us is the upper right, and below that there is a lower right and lower left. And you can see in this position, in this figure, this is a carbonyl group which is towards us, that is you're viewing from this angle, and you can see this is a upper left, this is upper right, this is lower right, and this is lower left. And you can see an plane A is bisecting the plane B. This is plane B and this is plane A. You are viewing from this angle, and you can see this is a plane A and this is plane B. And you can see this is a carbonyl group C1, this is C6, this is C2. The quadrants are labeled with positive and negative signs in such a way that there are mirror images across the symmetry planes A and B. And you can see there are opposite signs. The contributions of substituents lying in different sectors towards the sign of a cotton effect are considered according to the following rules. That is a set of rules, or a set of rules you should follow, that the substituents which shows the plus cotton effect or minus cotton effect. Those rules are, that is the substituents lying in the coordinate planes contribute negligibly and are usually ignored. That is, if the substituents are lying on the plane in the coordinate planes, that is, it should be ignored. The substituents lying in the positive sectors, the positive sectors are upper left and lower right. This is upper left and this is lower right. Make a positive contribution, that is, which shows a positive cotton effect. And the substituents lying in the negative sectors, the negative sectors are upper right and lower left, which make a negative contribution, that is, which shows a negative cotton effect. This is generally true for substituents which are more polarizable than hydrogen atom, such as chloride, bromide and iodide. Such substituents conforming to the octant rule are termed as consignate, and a very few others such as fluoride, which have a low polarizability, as I said before, that is, it has a low polarizability than an hydrogen atom and do not conform to the octant rule, which is termed as designate. Coming to the third rule, actual substituents at carbon 2 and carbon 6, this is carbon 2 and this is carbon 6, which are close to the chromophore. Chromophore is the carbonyl group here, and that is C2 and 6 are very close to the carbonyl group and do not contribute much as they lie in the plane B. That is, this carbon C2 and C6 doesn't contribute anything to the cotton effect as they lie in the plane B. This is plane B. The four quadrants described so far constitute a set of rare octants. On the left hand side of the plane C, which is not shown here, but I have said you there is three planes, that is, one is A, one is B and one more, there is a plane C. There is another set of four front quadrants which are mirror images of the former, that is plane C, which has a mirror images of these signs. Thus, substituents lying in them contribute oppositely. That is, their contributions to the sign of the cotton effect are exactly opposite to those shown in this diagram. That is, in the plane C, the signs will be opposite to this quadrants. A few typical examples are discussed on the various applications of the rule. That is, first one is conformation. If in a conformationally mobile molecule, the absolute configuration is known, the preferred conformation can be ascertained by the application of the octant rule. That is, by applying all these rules, that applying the octant rule, the conformation of the particular molecule can be ascertained. An example I have chosen here is an methyl cyclo 3-methyl cyclohexanone. You can see 1, 2, 3 is a methyl at the third position, which shows a dextral rotation. Hence, it is called a plus 3-methyl cyclohexanone, which known to have a R configuration, and this is the R. According to the octant rule, the equatorial conformer, this is a structure. Equatorial conformer should have a positive cotton effect. That is, if you view through this angle, this is a R position which is in the left quadrant, that is upper left octant, then which shows a positive quadrant. See, this is the upper left quadrant which shows the positive. There is a methyl group attached to the third position. While the axial conformer, whereas if you see the other enantiomer, since it has a chiral molecule, it exists in an enantiomer. One such enantiomer shows a positive cotton effect, whereas other such enantiomer which shows a negative cotton effect. And we should prove that which shows a correct conformation. Since the ketone actually shows a positive cotton effect according to the experimental proof, the equatorial conformer predominates. That is, this is actual correct structure, because according to the experimental it shows the positive cotton effect, and even this XA molecule, XA enantiomer also shows a positive cotton effect. Hence, this is the correct structure, correct configuration, whereas this is not the correct configuration of the methyl cyclohexanone. Whereas you can see in this, the methyl group is at the negative quadrant, that is, which shows a negative, that is the upper right quadrant, which contributes to a negative cotton effect. Coming to the next one, configuration, trans 10 methyl dodecanone. This is the trans 10, there is the keto group, and there is a methyl at the 10th position. At the second position there is a keto group, hence it is a trans 10 methyl 2-decalone. Exists in a unique rigid conformation. The absolute configuration of the plus enantiomer, which shows a positive cotton effect, is thus Y in accordance with the octant rule. That is, if you view through this carbonyl group, the methyl group falls at the positive quadrant, hence it shows a positive cotton effect. And you can see here, this is a positive cotton effect. Upper left, this is an upper right, the methyl group falls at an upper right, since it is an equatorial position. This is an equatorial, not an axial position, hence it comes to the upper left, which is a positive cotton effect. Whereas the mirror image configuration, that is, since it is a chiral molecule, the mirror image, that is the one more isomer, which gives a negative cotton effect, whereas this isomer which shows a positive cotton effect. Coming to the steroidal ketones, to find the configurations in the steroids, the structure of 3-cholestanol is projected according to the octane rule. This structure of an 3-cholestanol, that is at the third position there is a keto group, hence it is a cholestanol. The following procedure must be adopted for proper projection. The structure is so written that the carbonyl group points upwards. That is, as I told you, this is the structure of an 3-cholestanol, but the carbonyl group has a downside. Hence, you should twist a molecule about 180 degree. We get the carbonyl group at the top position, which is nearer to the observer, towards observer, and hence the carbon 2 and carbon 2 which is at the right side and carbon 4 at the left side. Yeah, that is C2 and C4 then written as seen, and the cyclohexanone rectangle is constructed by placing the diagonal opposite carbon just above oxygen. That is, this if you place on the quadrants, that is if you observe, you can see there is a C4 at the left, C2 at the right, whereas C10 just above the carbonyl group. That is, if you pass a line through this, if you view through the carbonyl group, that is next immediate atom to this carbonyl group will be 10, because this 4 and 5 will be towards, this will be left, this will be right, whereas if you pass a line, this will be in this center. Hence the diagonal opposite carbon C10 just above the oxygen. The remaining rings are drawn by following the sequence of numbering. That is, you can follow this sequence of numbering and you can arrange in the respective quadrants. Since the preponderance of atoms in the upper left octant, that is the methyl group, is an axial position which is at the upper left octant, the Cotton effect is predicted to be positive in accordance with the observation. That is, you can see in this the 10 methyl group is at the left, that is upper left, which shows a positive Cotton effect. This is methyl is at the equatorial position, but not the axial one. Coming to the last method based on the anomalous X-ray scattering. The X-ray diffraction measures only the scalar geometrical parameters of a molecule, that is only in the solid state, and therefore cannot ordinarily discriminate between two non-superposable enantiomers which are isometric. This is illustrated graphically with the help of an imaginary linear molecule with two distinguishable ends marked A and B and one-dimensional chiral simplex. That is, A and B in the sense there is a two chiral centers in a molecule. In figure below, AB and BA represents the two enantiomers of a molecule. That is, as I said, and this is a linear molecule which has a two chirals. One such is A and B, and these are the two enantiomers. That is, if you draw a line, if you keep a mirror, these two things will be an exact opposite mirror images. That is, since it is an enantiomer, and you can see AB is opposite to BA. Since this is an enantiomer, this represents two enantiomers of a molecule, and these are the examples which experimentally proved. This is a sodium rubidium salt of a tartaric acid. That is, H of the tartaric acid has been replaced by rubidium and sodium. Hence it is called sodium rubidium salt of tartaric acid. And the other such molecule is isoleucine bromide. This is the structure of an isoleucine with a bromide salt. But don't confuse between these two molecules. It's just studied using one molecule. You can see if you name this carbon as A and this carbon as B, and these two structures corresponds to just one molecule but not to this molecule also. Only one molecule which has A and B and B and A. That is, enantiomers of these two are represented here but not this one. When a parallel beam of X-rays is impinged on units, that is, a parallel beam of rays is passed on to these enantiomers. Scattering takes place at A and B, that is at A chiral center and B chiral, and two sets of diffracted wavefronts starting exactly the same phase cause interference patterns at the photographic plates. And you can see this is the photographic plate. uh, photographic photographic plates P and P dash. Since the phase difference of the two interfering waves depends solely on the distance traveled by them from both ends, the interference patterns are identical for the enantiomers AB as well as and BA. The analysis can give only the distance between the two nuclei A and B. However, when one of the nuclei, say B, is a heavy atom and absorbs partially at the frequency of the X-ray used, that is, when the wavelength of the X-ray lies near the absorption edge of the heavy atom, anomalous scattering results, meaning that the secondary wavefront scattered from B, that is, more amounts of waves are scattered from the surface of B, undergoes a phase lag. The two ends of the molecule A and B can now be differentiated by the X-ray as regards their absolute position in space. Thus, in the right hand diagram, this is the right hand diagram, AB dash, this is a BP dash and AP dash. In the right hand diagram, BP dash is greater than AP dash. That is, thus in the right hand diagram, that it means the diffracted rays from B, that is the diffracted rays from B, has not only to travel a longer distance to reach P dash, but has already suffered a phase lag. And this is the phase lag you can see here. Instead of to travel here with using the second set of waves, as I said you here, secondary wavefront scattered from B undergoes a phase lag. Hence, using a second waves from B, it travels to a longer distance and falls on the photographic plates at P dash. Has suffered a phase lag. This is a phase lag from P dash to circled P dash. Suffered a phase lag, that is, B has not only to travel a longer distance to reach P dash, but has already suffered a phase lag, so that the difference in phase with respect to the rays from A is accentuated. That is, you can find the difference of the phase lag from this to this compared to an A. On the contrary, in the left hand diagram, AP is greater than BP. That is, the scattered rays from A have to travel a longer distance than the rays from B to reach P. But because of an initial phase lag at B, the ultimate phase difference when both the scattered wavefronts reach the photographic plate decreases to that extent, and if the phase lag is expressed in terms of reduced velocities, the dotted lines represent the new pathways. This is the new pathways, and the two interference patterns at circled P and circled P dash are now substantially different. The enantiomers are thus discriminated, and an analysis of the two interference patterns will give their absolute configuration of A and B. This is all about determination of absolute and relative configuration. Thank you for listening.